Chapter 65. It was Yan Pu who thus opposed sending help to Liu Zhang. Then Ma Keo rose and said, "I have been the recipient of much kindness from my lord, which I feel I can never repay adequately. Now let me lead an army to take Jiameng Pass and capture Liu Bei. Then my lord Liu Zhang will surely lose his 20 counties, and they shall be yours." This offer rejoiced Zhang Lu, who sent away Huan Quan with a promise to help. Then Zhang Lu told of 20,000 for Ma Keo to lead. Panda was too ill to take part in the expedition, so he remained in Hanzhong. Zhang Lu ordered Yang Bo to be army supervisor. Ma Keo and Ma Dai chose a day to march to Jiameng Pass. Meanwhile, the messenger sent to Chengdu by Fa Zheng had returned to Liu Cheng to report. Chengdu advised Liu Zhang to set fire to all the plains and valleys between the capital and the invaders, as well as the granaries, to sway the people and to stand solely on the defensive. This news caused Liu Bei and Zhu Jian great anxiety, for it would be a grave danger to them. However, Fa Zheng was more sanguine. "Do not be anxious," said he. "The plan would be extremely harmful, but it will not be carried out. Liu Zhang will not do that." Surely enough, very soon they heard that Liu Zhang had not adopted the suggestion. He would not remove the people. It was a great relief to Liu Bei. Then said Zhu Jian, "Now let us capture Pinyin quickly, for that done Chengdu is as good as ours." Liu Bei therefore told of Guanzhong and Wei Yan to advance first. When commander of Pinyin, Fei Guan, heard of their advance, he ordered Lai Yan to go out to stop them, and Lai Yan led out 3,000 troops. The two sides being arrayed, Guanzhong rode out and fought some 100 bouts with Lai Yan. Neither was able to claim a victory, and so Zhu Jiang from the midst of the host ordered them to beat the gongs to cease from battle. When Guanzhong had got back to his side again, he said, "O instructor, why did you sound the retirement just as I was getting the better of my opponent?" "Because I saw that Lai Yan was not to be overcome by mere force. Tomorrow you shall fight again, and then you shall lead him into the hills by the ruse of pretended defeat. There will be a surprise awaiting him." Guanzhong agreed to try this plan, and so on the morrow accepted Lai Yan's challenge when it was offered. After about the 10th bout, Guanzhong and his troops pretended to be worsted and ran. Lai Yan pursued and was quickly lured into the mountains. Suddenly his danger flashed into his mind, and he turned to go back. But he found Wei Yan's troops drawn up across his path. From a hilltop nearby, Zhu Jian cried, "You had better yield. If not, there are bows and crossbows on both sides of you all ready to avenge the death of our Pantao." Lai Yan dropped off his horse, threw aside his armor, and offered submission. Not a soldier of his had been hurt. The prisoner was conducted to Liu Bei, who was very affable, and so won Lai Yan's heart that Lai Yan offered to try to seduce Fei Guan from his allegiance. Though he is related to Liu Zhang, yet Fei Guan and I are very close friends. Let me go and persuade him. Wherefore Lai Yan was sent back to the city to induce his chief to come over to Liu Bei's side. Lai Yan talked to such effect of the kindness and virtues of Liu Bei that Fei Guan was won over, opened the city gates, and admitted the invaders. As soon as Liu Bei had entered Pinyin, he sent out his forces to take the capital. While thus engaged, a hasty messenger came to tell of the doings at Jiameng Pass. There suddenly appeared an army from the east under Ma Keo, Ma Dai, and Yang Bo. They are attacking, and the pass will certainly be lost if help is not sent quickly. "We need both Zhang Fei and Zhao Zilong for this," remarked Zhu Jiang. "Then we could oppose successfully." "But Zhao Zilong is away," said Liu Bei. "However, Zhang Fei is here. Let us send him quickly." "Do not say anything, my lord," said Zhu Jiang. "Let me stir him to fight his noblest." But as soon as Zhang Fei heard of the danger, he came rushing in, shouting, "I must say farewell, brother. I am off to fight Ma Keo." However, Zhu Jiang made as if he heard not and said to Liu Bei that Ma Keo has invaded Jiameng Pass, and we have no one to drive him back. Nobody can stand up to him unless we can get Guan Yu from Jingzhou. Guan Yu could do it. "Why do you despise me, O instructor?" cried Zhang Fei. "Did I not once drive back a whole army with my mere voice? Think you that I mind a stupid fool like Ma Keo?" Zhu Jiang said, "Yes, General. But when you forced back the waters and broke the bridge in the long slope, you succeeded because your enemies were doubtful. If they had known, you would not have come off so easily. Now all the world knows this Markeo, and has heard about his 6 battles at River Wai, and how he made Cao Cao cut off his beard and throw away his robe. Markeo very nearly slew Cao Cao too. This is no lightsome task like that, and even Guan Yu might fail. All I care for is to go, and if I do not overcome this fellow, I will take the consequences. Well, if you will put that in writing, you may lead the attack, and I will ask our Lord to lead another army to back you up this time. He can leave the defense of this town to me till Zhao Zilong returns. I also want to go, said Wai Yan. Wai Yan was allowed to go with 500 of light horse in advance of Zhang Fei. Liu Bei marched third. Wai Yan and his scouts soon arrived at Jiameng Pass, and there fell in with Yang Bo. They engaged, but after a few bouts Yang Bo fled. At this success Wai Yan was seized with ambition to rival it and try to snatch the credit that would fall to Zhang Fei, so he pursued. But he presently came across a line of battle all drawn up, the commander being Ma Dai. Wai Yan, thinking it was the redoubtable Ma Keo, rode toward him whirling his sword. Soon Ma Dai turned and ran away, and Wai Yan followed him. However, Ma Dai presently turned back and shot an arrow, which wounded Wai Yan in the left arm, so that he left the pursuit and turned his face the other way. Then Ma Dai came after him and chased Wai Yan nearly up to the pass. Here Ma Dai was suddenly confronted by a fierce, thunder-roaring leader who dashed down from the pass as on a flying steed. It was Zhang Fei, who had just arrived. Hearing the noise of battle below the pass, Zhang Fei had come to learn what it meant and saw the arrow wound of Wai Yan. Soon Zhang Fei was in the saddle and off to the rescue, but before he engaged, he would ascertain if the foe was worthy of his steel. "Who are you?" "Tell your name," cried Zhang Fei, "then I may fight with you." "I am Ma Dai of Ziliang." "As you are not Ma Keo, go away quickly, for you are no match for me. You may bid Ma Keo himself come, and tell him that Zhang Fei of Yan is here." "How dare you treat me with contempt?" cried Ma Dai in hot anger, and he came galloping up with his spear set ready to thrust. But after half-score bouts he fled. Zhang Fei was about to pursue, when a rider came up to him hastily, crying, "Do not pursue my brother." The rider was Liu Bei, and Zhang Fei stopped. The two returned together to the pass. "I knew your impulsive temper, and so I followed you. Since you have got the better of him, you may well rest and recuperate for the fight tomorrow with Ma Keo." The rolling of drums at dawn next day declared the arrival of Ma Keo. Liu Bei looked at the array from a point of vantage and saw Ma Keo emerge from the shadow of his great standard. Ma Keo wore a lion helmet, and his belt was clasped with the shaggy head of a wild beast. His breastplate was silver and his robe of white. As his dress and bearing were so extraordinary, so were his abilities superior. And Liu Bei looked at him, sighing admiringly. "He justifies what people say," said Liu Bei, handsome Ma Keo. Zhang Fei was for going down at once, but his brother once more checked him, saying, "No, not yet. Avoid the first keenness of his fighting ardor." Thus below was Ma Keo challenging Zhang Fei, while above, Zhang Fei was fretting at being unable to settle Ma Keo. Time after time Zhang Fei was setting out, but each time his brother checked him. And so it continued till past midday, when Liu Bei, noticing signs of fatigue and weariness among Ma Keo's army, decided that it was time to let Zhang Fei try his fortune. Whereupon Liu Bei chose out 500 horsemen to accompany his brother, and let the party go. Ma Keo, seeing Zhang Fei coming with so small a force, signalled with his spear to his array to retire a bowshot, and Zhang Fei's troops halted. When all his troops had taken their places, Zhang Fei set serpent halberd and rode out. "Do you know who I am?" shouted Zhang Fei. "I am Zhang Fei of Yan." Ma Keo replied, "My family having been noble for many generations, I am not likely to know any rustic dolts." This reply upset Zhang Fei, and in a moment the two steeds were rushing toward each other, both men with poised spears. The fight began and continued for 100 bouts. Neither had the advantage. "A veritable tiger, the leader," sighed Liu Bei. But Liu Bei felt that Zhang Fei was running a risk, wherefore he sounded the gong as a signal to cease the fight, and each drew off to his own side. Zhang Fei rested his steed for a time, then leaving his helmet, he wound a turban about his head mounted, and rode out to renew the fight. Ma Chao also came out, and the duel continued. Presently Liu Bei thought his brother in danger. So he girded on his armor, and went down into the plain. He watched till they had fought another 100 bouts, and then as both seemed to wax fiercer than ever, he gave the signal again to cease the battle. Both drew off and returned each to his own side. It was then getting late, and Liu Bei said to his brother, "You had better retire for today. He is a terrible opponent. Try him again tomorrow." But Zhang Fei's spirit was roused, and it was unlikely that such advice would be palatable. "No," shouted he, "I will die, not come back. But it is late." "You cannot go on fighting," said Liu Bei. "Let them bring torches, and we will have a night battle," said Zhang Fei. Ma Chao, having mounted a fresh steed, now rode out and shouted, "Dare you try a night battle, Zhang Fei?" Zhang Fei's excitement rose higher. He hastily changed horses with his brother and rode forth. "If I do not capture you, I will not go back to the pass," said Zhang Fei. "And if I do not overcome you, I will not return to the camp," said Ma Chao. Both sides cheered. They lit many thousand torches till it seemed as light as day, and the two great generals went to the front to fight. At the 20th bout Ma Chao turned his steed in tide. "Whither are you going?" called out Zhang Fei. The fact was that Ma Chao had begun to see he could not win in direct and simple combat, so he thought to try a ruse. By a false flight, as though he knew he had lost, he would inveigle Zhang Fei into pursuit. He picked up a copper mace secretly, and kept a careful watch on his opponent for the most favourable moment to strike. But Ma Chao's flight only put Zhang Fei upon his guard, and when the moment came for the blow with the mace he dodged, so that the weapon flew harmlessly past his ear. Then Zhang Fei turned his horse, whereupon Ma Chao began to pursue. Then Zhang Fei pulled up, took his bow, fitted an arrow to the string, and let fly at Ma Chao. But Ma Chao also dodged, and the arrow flew by. Then each returned to his own side. Then Liu Bei came out to the front of his battle line and called out, "Note well, O Ma Chao, that I, who have never treated people other than with kindness and justice and truth and sincerity, swear that I will not take advantage of your period of repose to pursue or attack. Wherefore you may rest a while in peace." Ma Chao, hearing these words, withdrew guarding the rear, and the other generals one by one returned, while Liu Bei drew off his army toward the pass. Early next day Zhang Fei was once more going down out of the pass to fight, when they told him that the directing instructor had arrived. Liu Bei went to receive him, and Zhu Jiang at once began to speak of Ma Chao. "He is the most terrible leader of the age. If he fights a desperate battle with Zhang Fei, loss of a general will ensue. So I have come as quickly as I could. I left my and you in the safe hands of Zhao Zilong and Guanzhong. I think I have a little ruse left that will bring Ma Chao over to our side. Now I have seen the man. I greatly admire him," said Liu Bei. "If we could only win him over." "Then listen, my lord," said Zhu Jiang. "Jiang Liu greatly desires the title of Prince of Hanzhong. Among his most intimate subordinates, I know Yang Song open to bribery. So we will send a person secretly to see him and give him gold and silver, and so win his support. This done, we will ride to Jiang Liu and tell him that you are set upon taking Yizhu from its present ruler, which will give an opportunity to wipe out the enmity he has so long nourished against Liu Zhang, and that the reward of his remaining firmly on our side to the end will be that you will memorialize the throne for the coveted title for him. This will make him order Ma Chao to return, and when that is done, I shall find a means of winning him over." Liu Bei wrote a letter, sent it by the hand of Sun Qian together with gold and pearls. Sun Qian went by secret roads to give these to Yang Song, and when he found Yang Song and explained his mission in private, he was quickly led into the presence of Zhang Liu. "How can Liu Bei memorialize the throne to confer on me the rank of a prince when he is but a simple general himself?" asked Zhang Liu when he understood the offer and its conditions. "He is an imperial uncle," said Yang Song. "With such a rank he could present such a memorial." Zhang Liu assented. He sent orders to Ma Chao to cease fighting, and Sun Qian remained as the guest of Yang Song till he should see whether Ma Chao would obey the command. Before long the messenger returned with a word from Ma Chao that he could not cease fighting till he had been successful. A second and third messenger returned with a similar response. "This Ma Chao is untrustworthy," said Yang Song. "He will not withdraw his soldiers because he contemplates rebellion. That is the real reason." Yang Song set stories afloat rumoring Ma Chao desires to make himself the ruler of the West and has said that he will no longer be content with subordinate rank, and he means to avenge the death of his father. The rumors came to the ear of Zhang Lu, and he asked Yang Song what should be done. Yang Song proposed, saying, "Give Ma Chao a limit of a month in order to accomplish his task, provided he consents to 3 conditions, and if he does not agree he will have to be put to death. The 3 conditions are the capture of West River Land, the head of Liu Zhang, and the repulse of the Jingzhou troops. If he fails in any one of these, just bring his head. Meanwhile, Zhang Wei should be sent as guard, one of the strategic points which will control Ma Chao's army in case of rebellion." When Ma Chao heard the 3 demands made on him, he was greatly troubled, saying, "What can such a charge mean?" After taking counsel with Ma Dai, it seemed best to suspend fighting, and the army returned. But Yang Song had not yet attained his end, so he said to Zhang Lu, "Ma Chao's return with an army will be a danger, and hence all the points of vantage on the homeward road must be guarded so that to stop him." Thus Ma Chao was helpless, and could see no way out of the difficulty. Then Zhu Jiang said to his lord, "Now is my chance to use my little 3 inches of unworn tongue. Ma Chao is in a fix. I am going to his camp to persuade him to come over to your side. But I do not like you to run such a risk, instructor. You are my most necessary support, and if anything happened to you, what should I do?" Zhu Jiang was set upon going and persisted in his request. Liu Bei again and again refused. At this juncture a messenger came with letters from Zhao Zilong. Liu Bei called him in and questioned him. He was Lai Hui of Jianing, the man who had formerly remonstrated so earnestly with Liu Shan. "You once pleaded with your master to keep me out. Why are you here now?" "Because the prudent bird chooses its perch, and the wise person his master. I did attempt to dissuade Liu Zhang of Yizhu from a course which I felt to be disastrous, and thereby fulfilled my duty as his servant. He rejected my counsel, and I knew he would fail. Your liberality, O General, has won over all the region, and success must be yours. I wish to serve under your banner. Your services will surely be of great advantage to me, sir," said Liu Bei. Then Lai Hu began to talk of Ma Chao. "I knew him when we were in West Valley Land together. He is now in great straits, and I may be able to talk him over. What say you?" "Just the man to go instead of me," interjected Zhu Jiang. "But what arguments will you use?" Lai Hu leaned over and whispered in his ear thus and thus. What he said seemed to please Zhu Jiang mightily, and he was bidden to go forthwith. Arrived at the camp, Lai Hu sent in his name, at which Ma Chao remarked, "Yes, I know him, a glib and specious persuader. I know what he has come for, too." So Ma Chao placed a score of armed ruffians in hiding about his tent, and told them to cut the visitor to pieces if the signal was given. Then the guest was led in and came walking proudly. His host remained seated stiff and upright. Ma Chao spoke gruffly, saying, "What are you come for?" "I am here as persuader. This sword here in the scabbard is newly ground. You may try me by words, but if the words do not penetrate, I shall ask you to try the sword." Lai Hu smiled, saying, "O General, evil is not far off. However, I am thinking the newly ground sword will not be tried on my head. You will want to try it on your own. What evil were you talking about?" "The worst vilification could not hide the beauty of Lady Zai Shi of Yu, nor could the most fulsome praise gloze over the ugliness of Lady Wuyin of Kai. The sun rises to the meridian and then declines. The moon waxes to the full and then wanes. All things obey the one law. Now, General, you are at enmity with Cao Cao for your father's death, and in West Valley Land you carry a stubborn, grinding hate for your family's death. You can neither rescue Liu Zhang by repulsing the army from Jingzhou, nor can you settle Yang Song by getting an interview with Shang Lu. The whole world now holds no place for a person without a lord. And if you experience further defeats, like that one on River Wai, or the loss of Duchesne, will you not be too ashamed to look any human in the face?" Marquet bowed his head, saying, "You speak well, sir, but I am helpless. Now that you listen to me, I would ask why those fearsome ruffians are in hiding by your tent," continued Lai Hui. Marquet, suddenly stricken with shame, ordered them to retire. Lai Hui continued his speech. "Liu Bei, the imperial uncle, is considerate to his subordinates, and I am certain he will succeed, and so I have forsaken Liu Zhang to cleave to him. Your honored father joined him in destroying rebels. Why do you not flee from darkness into the light? Thereby you would avenge your father and become famous." Marquet, convinced of the wisdom of the course thus recommended, proved his conversion by sending for Yang Bo and slaying him forthwith. Taking with him the head of his victim, Marquet accompanied Lai Hui to the pass and tendered his submission. Liu Bei welcomed him warmly and treated him as a highly honored guest. Marquet bowed his head, saying, "Meeting you, O illustrious lord, is like seeing the clear sky when the clouds have been swept aside." When Sun Qian returned from Yongsong's place, Liu Bei detached a force to go to the capture of Chengdu, left 2 generals Meng Da and Hu Jun to guard Jiameng Pass, and made a triumphant entry into Mianzhu with the welcome of Zhao Zilong and Huan Shang. 2 generals of West Riverland, Ma Han and Liu Jun, came to oppose Liu Bei, but Zhao Zilong went out against them while Liu Bei was entertaining Marquet at a banquet on the city wall. Ere it had concluded, Zhao Zilong slew both the generals and brought their heads to the banquet chamber. This exploit put Marquet on his mettle and doubled his respect for the conquerors. "Let not my lord attack," said Marquet. "I will make Liu Zhang surrender of his own accord. Should he resist, my brother Ma die, and I will take the city and offer it to you with both hands." Liu Bei was very pleased with the course of events. The day was indeed one of rejoicing, but Liu Zhang was greatly distressed at the news of his fresh misfortunes, which reached him with the return of his defeated soldiers. He barred the gates and stopped all exits. Before long came news of the approach of Marquet with an army of rescue. The imperial protector then ventured to mount the walls, and soon Marquet and Ma Dai rode up and stood below the ramparts. And Marquet called out, "I wish to speak with Liu Zhang." Then Liu Zhang showed himself, and Marquet plunged into the matter without more ado. "I took the leadership of Zhang Lu's army to rescue Yizhu, little thinking that, under the calumnious advice of Yang Song, Zhang Lu would try to slay me. However, now I have gone over to the side of Liu Bei, the imperial uncle, and advise you, sir, to do the same, you and all your officers. Thereby you will all escape harm. If anyone holds on a misguided course, I shall take the city." Such words came as a shock, and Liu Zhang paled. His feelings overcame him, and he swooned. When he came to his senses, he muttered, "I am stupid and I am sorry. Better open the gates and end it. The city will be saved." "No, no," cried Dong He. "There are 30,000 of good soldiers in the city and ample money and stores for a year to come. Hold out." But Liu Zhang was broken, saying, "My father and I have ruled Shu for 20 years and have done no particular good for the people. We have fought for 3 years. The grass has been bestained with the blood of my people. The fault is mine. I could not bear it, and so I see no better way than to surrender, whereby I may bring peace to the people." Those about him wept. One man spoke, saying, "You speak as heaven guides you." Turning toward him, they recognized a man of Baxi named Kaio Zhu, who had the reputation of being an astrologer. "I have studied the aspect of the heavens, and a multitude of stars gathered over the west, one of which shone as the full moon, a right royal star. And I recall a popular couplet of last year. When comes the ruler from the east, then may you on new rice feast. None can withstand the decree of the Most High." Liu Ba and Huan Quan, who heard these words, were very angry at such a speech and rose up, swords in hand, to smite the speaker. But Liu Zhang stayed them. Next came news that Zhu Jing, the governor of the Shu district, had climbed the wall and gone over to the invaders. This was the last blow. Liu Zhang went home weeping. Next day they reported that Liu Bei, the imperial uncle, had sent Jian Yang as legate to visit Liu Zhang, and he was even then at the city gate. Jian Yong was admitted, and he entered, riding in a carriage and looking about him most haughtily. Suddenly he was hailed from the street by a man with a sword in his hand, who cried, "You have got your wish, wretched creature, and you seem to think there is no one to compare with you. But do not look so contemptuously at us of Shu." Jian Yong quickly got out of his carriage to speak to the speaker, who was a man of Mianju named Tin Mai. "Worthy brother," said Jian Yong, "I did not recognize you. I pray you not to be angry." Both then went to visit Liu Zhang, and they spoke of the liberality and broad-mindedness of Liu Bei, said he had no intention to harm anyone, and praised him to such effect that Liu Zhang then and there made up his mind finally that he would give up the struggle. So he treated Jian Yong very honorably that day. And the next day, taking his seal and insignia of office and his archives, he accompanied Jian Yong out of the city and went to Liu Bei's camp. Liu Bei came out in person to receive him. Taking Liu Zhang by the hand, Liu Bei wept, saying, "It is not that I wish to act cruelly or wrongly. I am the victim of circumstances and cannot help it." They entered the camp together, where the seal of office and the documents changed hands. Afterwards they rode into the city side by side. The people gave Liu Bei a cordial welcome, burning incense and illuminating the city. The victor went to the residence of the chief of the region, where he took his seat and was saluted by all the subordinate officials. However, Huan Quan and Liu Ba stayed away from the ceremony. This annoyed the more violent of Liu Bei's supporters, and they wished to kill the delinquents. But Liu Bei would not allow violence and threatened condign punishment to anyone who might interfere with these two. When the reception was over, Liu Bei went to visit the two recalcitrants, whereupon both came out and made their obeisance. Said Zhu Jiang to Liu Bei, "We have vanquished, and all opposition in Yizhou is at an end. But there cannot be two rulers, so you must remove Liu Zhang to Jingzhou." "But I do not wish to exile him," said Liu Bei. "He lost his prestige through weakness. If you are weak and undecided, you also will not last long." Liu Bei saw his advice was good, and so he gave a great banquet whereat he begged Liu Zhang to pack up his treasures and prepare to move. He gave the dispossessed imperial protector the title general who spreads prestige. Liu Zhang went away to Gongdan in Jingzhou, taking with him his family and all his possessions. Liu Bei thus became imperial protector of Yizhou. He conferred gifts on the civil and military officers who joined him, confirming their ranks and titles. Yan Yan was made general of the front army, Fa Zheng governor of the Shu district, Dan He and Zhu Jing imperial commanders, Liu Ba general of the left army, Huan Quan general of the right army, Wei Fei Guan Pengyong, Zhu Ying Lai Yan, Wulan Lei Tang Lai Hu Zhang Yi Qin Lai Kaio Zhu Lu Yin, Yu Zhang Deng Zhai, Yang Hong Zhu Kun Fei Fei Shi Meng Da. And others of Shu officers, whose aid had been conspicuous, were given high ranks and finer titles under the new rule, and the total of more than 60 of them were well rewarded. Naturally, honors were distributed freely to Liu Bei's immediate helpers, to whose efforts he owed his position. Zhu Jiang was held directing instructor. Guan Yu, general who destroys rebels and lord of Hanshu, Zhang Fei, general who subdues rebels and lord of Xinjiao Zilong, general who guards the west, Huanzhong, general who conquers the west, Wei Yan, general who wages successful war, Ma Keo, general who pacifies the west, Sun Qian Jian Yong, Mai Zhu Mai Fan, Ma Liang Ma Su Zhong Wan Yi Jai Liu Feng, Wan Ping Liao Hu Zhu Kang, and others, many of whom had come to Liu Bei from Jingzhou, received promotions and rewards. In addition, a special gift of 500 ounces of gold, 1,000 ounces of silver, much copper money, and 1,000 rolls of Sichuan silk was sent to Guan Yu, and all the military and civil officers were given appointments and rewards. Huge numbers of oxen and horses were slaughtered for banquets to the army, and the contents of the granaries were given to the common people, so that there were great rejoicings. Yizhou being settled, Liu Bei next desired to confiscate the lands of the more famous of the inhabitants about capital Chengdu and divide them among his officers. But here Zhao Zilong and others dissuaded him, saying, "The sufferings of the people have been severe and losses great. It would be wise policy to let them settle down to their occupations as soon as possible." It would be wrong to reward our own people at the expense of these people. Liu Bei listened and gave in with good grace. To Zhu Jiang, Liu Bei assigned the revision of the laws, in which the punishments to be made on the whole heavy. Then Fa Zheng spoke up. The founder of Han Liu Ban drew up 3 chapters of law, and the people were all profoundly affected by his virtue. I would rather that the laws be few and liberal, that the people may be comforted. Zhu Jiang replied, you only look at one side. The laws of Qin were fiercely cruel and provoked resentment among the people. It was fitting that the supreme ancestor should temper them with kindness. Under the weak administration of Liu Shan, there has never been an efficient government, and there is a lack of respect for the law. The proper relationship between ruler and minister has been gradually obscured. Favor has been the means of rising, and the highest in rank have been the basest. Kindness has been extended into license, and the most benefited have been the most contemptuous, and thereby have crept in many evils. Now I mean to inculcate respect for the dignity of the law, and kindness shall follow its attainment. There shall be moderation in conferring rank, but honor shall really follow on such promotion. In the mutual cooperation of kindness and honor, and in proper distinction between superiors and inferiors lies the efficiency of a government. Fa Zheng had no argument to oppose. In due time all became perfectly tranquil, and all the 41 counties, with their respective garrisons, were peaceful and contented. As governor of the Shu district, Fa Zheng earned much hatred, busying himself in returning favors and avenging past deeds however small they were. One person told of the complaints to Zhu Jiang, urging his reproof, but Zhu Jiang referred to his meritorious services, saying, when our lord was in Jingzhou, fearful of Cao Cao on the north and trembling lest he be attacked from the east by Sun Quan, it was Fa Zheng who supported him, gave him directions, and added wings to him so that he could soar this high. In these prosperous days one can hardly begin to discipline Fa Zheng. Could we reasonably forbid him following somewhat his own way? So no investigation was made, but Fa Zheng heard of the complaints and corrected his faults. One day, when Liu Bei and Zhu Jiang were resting, and at leisure Guanping arrived with a letter from his father thanking his elder brother for the handsome gifts. Making obeisance and handing in his letter, Guanping said, my father was anxious to come into Yizhou to try conclusions with Ma Kao. Said Liu Bei, if he were to come and fight, I fear they would not both survive. There is nothing to be anxious about, said Zhu Jiang. I will write to Guan Yu. Liu Bei feared that his brother's impulsive temperament might lead to trouble, so he told Zhu Jiang to compose a letter and send back by Guanping. When Guanping came again to his father, the first question was, did you mention the contest with Ma Kao? Then the letter was produced, and this is what it said. I hear you are anxious to decide whether of the twain, Ma Kao or yourself, is the better man. Now I can measure Ma Kao. He may be unusually brave and bold, but he is only of the class of Ying Bu and Peng Yu of old. He might be a worthy rival of your younger brother, but he is far from the standard set by you, O Lord of the Beautiful Beard. You have a most important charge. If you come into the West River land, and Jingzhou should be lost, would you not be guilty of a terrible failure? I think you will see this. Guan Yu stroked his long beard and smiled as he read the letter. The instructor knows me thoroughly, said he to himself. He showed the letter to his clients and friends, and thought no more of going westward. The successes of Liu Bei in the west had been duly noted by Sun Quan, who thought he was surely now going to obtain the much-coveted Jingzhou. So he called in Zhang Zhao and Gu Yong to ask advice. Sun Quan said when Liu Bei occupied Jingzhou temporarily, he pledged he would return the region to the Southland when he would possess Yizhou. Now he has taken the 41 counties of West River land. If Jingzhou is not returned, I will take it by force. Zhang Zhao said, I have already a scheme that will need no fighting. Liu Bei will offer the place to you with both hands. In Shu there shine new sun and moon. Wu dreams Jingzhou will be his soon. We shall see in the next chapter the scheme to recover the much-desired region.